day appear when you've witnessed something you were never meant to see. It starts with a flicker in the night sky, a light that shouldn't be there, a shape hovering silently in the darkness, watching from above. At first, you convince yourself it's nothing. It was just a plane, a trick of the clouds, maybe your imagination, but deep down, you know better. You know you've seen something real, but then the quiet doesn't last. Days later, maybe weeks, there comes a knock at your door. It's late at night, or in the very early morning when the world is still asleep. You open the door, and standing there is what appears to be a man, or sometimes two. Men dressed in black suits, perfectly pressed, but strangely out of place. Their skin looks pale, almost waxy under the light. Their expressions are blank, their movements stiff, calculated, as though they're imitating humanity instead of being human. When they speak, their voices are flat, monotone, empty. They never come to discuss the event. They come to silence, to threaten. Witnesses from all over the world, across decades of time, describe the same pattern. Someone sees too much. Someone speaks too loudly. And then the men in black arrive. They warn you, in their cold and emotionless way, to forget what you saw, to never tell anyone. And the most terrifying thing is that most people listen. In the 1950s, Albert Bender was one of the first to experience their wrath. Bender wasn't just another witness. He was a researcher. He had built an entire organization dedicated to studying UFOs. But then, suddenly, he shut it all down. He never explained why until years later. He said 3 men in black appeared in his home. He didn't hear them come in. They were simply there. He claimed they did unspeak with words, but pressed their thoughts into his mind like a heavy weight, suffocating him. They told him to stop, to abandon his work immediately, and he did. Overnight, he destroyed his research and lived the rest of his life in silence, haunted by what he saw. But his story was only one of many. Just months after the Roswell crash in 1947, Harold Dahl claimed to witness strange objects hovering near Maury Island. Not long after, he was invited to breakfast by a man in a black suit. The man seemed ordinary at first, till Dahl realized he knew details about the encounter Dahl had never shared with anyone. Then came the threat. If Dahl valued his family, he would forget what he saw. Dahl obeyed. He walked away from the UFO world forever. Stories like this continued to surface, each one stranger than the last. In New Jersey, during the 1960s, a woman working late in a quiet library reported an encounter that chilled her to her core. She had seen a UFO hovering outside her home days earlier, and then a tall man in a black suit entered the library. He didn't ask about books. He asked about her sighting. She described his appearance as deeply unsettling, his skin pale and lifeless, his lips unnaturally red, almost painted on. When she looked down at his hands, she froze. His long, thin fingers had no fingernails, not one. He smiled then, an awful grin stretched too wide, too unnatural. And then, without another word, he turned and walked out the door. She never saw him again. In the 1970s, At a hotel in Niagara Falls, a pair of men in black appeared together. Witnesses described them as identical, moving in eerie synchronization, as if they were reflections of one another. Their suits were spotless, their faces blank, their eyes lifeless. The front desk clerk swore their voices didn't sound human. They asked about a UFO researcher staying at the hotel and then left. But when a bellhop followed them toward the exit, he discovered something terrifying. The men hadn't gone out the door at all. They had simply vanished, dissolving into thin air. Perhaps the most chilling story comes from Dr. Herbert Hopkins in 1976. Hopkins was a physician studying a UFO case in Maine when one night his phone rang. A strange voice identified itself as a UFO investigator and asked to visit. Minutes later, a man in a black suit appeared at Hopkins' door. Hopkins was stunned. He hadn't told anyone his address. The man looked strange, bold, pale, with bright red lips that looked painted on. His speech was slow, mechanical. Then he pulled a coin from his pocket and told Hopkins to watch closely. The coin shimmered, blurred, and then simply vanished into thin air. The man told Hopkins to destroy his UFO research. Then he left. Hopkins was so terrified he burned all his files the very next day. Even celebrities have reported encounters. Actor Dan Aykroyd, while filming a UFO documentary in the early 2000s, claimed he stepped outside during a break and saw a black car with two men in dark suits staring at him. The moment he looked back, the car was gone, vanished just like that. Hours later, his show was abruptly cancelled. No explanation was ever given. Again and again, these encounters repeat. People describe how their presence makes the air feel heavy, how the world seems to go quiet around them. Phones stop working, lights flicker, cars stall. Some witnesses say they felt drained, as though the life was being pulled out of them just by standing near the men in black. Others noticed how strange their behavior was, as though they didn't fully understand the world they were in. They'd stare too long at simple objects. They'd fumble with coins or pens as if they had never held one before. They would smile at the wrong times, blink too little or too much. Always uncanny, always wrong. So what are they? Are they government agents sent to cover up the truth? Extraterrestrials in disguise, failing to mimic us completely, or something else entirely? Beings from a place we cannot comprehend, shadows that slip between our world and theirs, only when secrets must be buried. Whatever they are, one fact remains. They are always watching, waiting for anyone who sees too much. So if you ever find yourself staring at strange lights in the night sky, or if you catch a glimpse of something that feels impossible, something that chills you to your bones because you know it was real, be careful who you tell, because the men in black may find you. They may step into your world without warning, and when they do, they will remind you in their flat, hollow voices that some truths are not meant to be spoken. And when you hear the knock at your door, you will know the real terror does not come from the sky. The real terror comes after, when the men in black come for you. What or who do you believe the men in black are? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The shadows know me as Mortis, and this is Cryptic Sense. Make sure to like the video and subscribe for more creepy videos like this one. Until the next time we meet, my friend.